Welcome to your restorative yoga workshop. My name is Elise, and I will be guiding you through this afternoon, and we'll talk about some different kinds of yoga and then have a chance to practice things. So without really having everybody with a mat and prepared for a full asana movement practice, I wanted to do something that would be accessible for everybody. So I know you've done yoga. Who else has... And you do yoga too. Okay. So restorative yoga, there's obviously tons of different kinds of yoga. Restorative yoga, the main difference between restorative and other types, and I brought my bolster as an example, is that you're fully supported. So whether it's in a seat or laying down on the ground with something under your knees, the goal is that every part of your body is supported. So there's very little active muscle engagement. It's more of letting your body restore, when we say restore, back to an original, good feeling. So if you're feeling worn out, restorative yoga you can do anytime. There's a lot more types of yoga that are a little more active. Restorative yoga can even meld into yoga nidra, therapeutic yoga, sleep yoga. I think I've heard that 20 minutes of sleep yoga, and that's what we would use this type of soundtrack for, is equivalent to 4 hours of sleep, of real sleep, because it puts your brain in such a relaxed state. But I just wanted to give you a little bit of background about myself and how I got involved in yoga and how I ended up at the leukodystrophy conference. I've been a yoga practitioner for about 20 years, and when I had a son with Canavan disease, which is a leukodystrophy. And when he was very little, I would put him in child's pose and have him do, all different hip opening exercises. His physical therapist would always tell me, whatever you get through the hips, you get through the lips, meaning when your hips are adjusted and open, it affects your whole body. So I know if you sit a lot, your hips get closed off. So I would do a lot of things, laying him down, stretching his hips, putting him belly down while he could tolerate it. And then as he got older, much older, I was in teacher training for yoga teacher. And there was a set sequence that I taught, and it was corporate yoga at a studio. And I would have my son, Maxie. He was very profoundly disabled, multiple disabilities, in a wheelchair. And later on into life, he had almost no functional mobility. So I would have him laying in a couch next to me, and I would be sitting here, and I would say the sequence out loud. Inhale, reach your fingertips to the ceiling. Exhale, release to a fold. And I would just say this hour-long sequence over and over again to memorize it for an audition. And I started looking over at him, and I noticed that he was doing every breathing cue, which was a lot, because the way you cue yoga is breath to movement. You link your breath. Inhale, move a body part. Exhale, do something else. So almost for an hour straight was inhale, exhale. And I noticed he was doing it. And I said, Maxie, are you doing all the breathing cues with me? And he blinked, so he was nonverbal, but he would make certain open-ended vowel sounds. But he did a huge blink. And for him, the bigger the blink, the more affirmative. He squeezed his eyes, and then he started smiling and laughing. And then I said, do you want to sit in your wheelchair and do yoga with the class? Because I had other teachers that were in training, like myself, would come over. They were called our OMI. And my friend Natalie would come over, and we would put Maxie in his wheelchair, and he would do all the breathing cues. And then when the class would turn to the right, we would turn his wheelchair. So he was getting very excited and very involved in the breathing aspect. And I would maybe stretch his legs or give him adjustments, do his back. And then one day I told him a little story about yoga, which is the origins of yoga were that it was a seated practice. And the way it started was controlling your breath, because people would sit and meditate for hours at a time, seated, and they needed to find a way to find comfort while seated, not able to move. Like, they could physically move, but because of the type of meditation, it was really a practice of stillness. So then somebody was like, hey, why don't we control our breath to become more comfortable? Brilliant idea. So I told my son, Maxie, you are practicing the original form of yoga, sitting down, breathing, and controlling your breath to find comfort. And he cracked into a huge smile and then started laughing. And I said, you are, and then from then on, I called him my favorite yogi. And a yogi is just somebody who practices yoga. So he was really practicing a restorative form of yoga, because he was fully supported in his wheelchair, and I would tilt it back, put something under his feet, you know, just to have a little bit of a footrest. And that is really the idea of a modern form of restorative yoga. And in all of yoga, the most important thing is bringing awareness and attention to your breath. So today, I think we'll start with just some breathing exercises, because they can help. So if you are someone who sits a lot, whether for whatever reason, whether it's at work, it'll be kind of hard to do today, but there's postures where you can, and I have a bolster and we can go through some demos, but where you can just lay on the ground with something under your knees to be restorative for your lower back, maybe something under your neck. There's all different pillows. So I brought a small bolster, but I don't know if anybody's seen the big bolsters. This is the baby bolster, but there's bigger bolsters. You can even take pillows and blankets. So it will be very hard to do that in here today, but I'll just say try to, in your seat, get as comfortable as you can. Whether it's cross-legged, switch around, relax your hands, and just find a place where you can begin to settle in and just surrender into your chair. You can even close your eyes. You can keep your chin up or gently tuck your chin to find some length in the back of your neck. Take a full deep breath in. Fill up your lungs as full as you can. Big open mouth exhalation. Let that go. And take another full breath in. Fill up your lungs as full as you can. And just hold for one moment. Big open mouth exhalation, let that go. And take another full breath in, fill up your lungs. Take an extra sip of air in at the top. Big open mouth exhalation. As you exhale, draw your navel towards your spine. Just notice if this helps you empty your lungs. And just bring your awareness to your breath. See if you can even out your inhalations and your exhalations. Take a full breath in. An option to hold full at the top. Big open mouth exhalation. Find a little core engagement. Draw your navel to your spine as you exhale. And take another breath in. This time we'll count. Inhale for 4, 3, 2, and 1. Pause for a moment. And exhale for 4, 3, 2, and 1. Hold empty. Now fill up. Breathe in for 4, 3, 2, and 1. Pause. And exhale for 4, 3, 2, and 1. Take another full breath in. Fill up your lungs as full as you can. Gently seal your lips together. Find a slight constriction in the back of your throat. Exhale through your nose. Slow and controlled. Continue on with that closed mouth breathing. Full breath in. Exhale through your nose for 4, 3, 2, and 1. Take another full breath in, fill up your lungs. And exhale, let that go. Just start to settle in to a natural breathing pattern. If you like the idea of counting your inhalations and your exhalations, you can continue counting. Just start to settle in. Sometimes we talk about the idea of being present and being mindful. And all that means is calling attention to the present moment. Sometimes the most simple way to do that is notice your breath. So now I invite you to just notice your breath. If you have a favorite color, maybe visualize your favorite color. And breathe in, fill up your lungs as full as you can. Breathe space into the bottom of your lungs, the sides. Let your ribs expand so that your lungs can fill with air. And breathe breathe in whatever color, maybe a bright white light, blue. Imagine that swirling around in your lungs. Exhale, empty out your lungs. Take another deep breath in, as full as you can for 4, 3, 2, and 1. Hold full at the top. Just hold your breath. Now exhale for 4, 3, 2, and 1. Fully empty your lungs. Hold your lungs empty. It's actually good for your body. Now take another full breath in, fill up. And just settle back into natural breathing. You can keep with the counting. Just start to notice your inhalations and your exhalations. And notice if you're starting to feel fidgety or your mind is starting to wander. Bring your awareness and your attention back to your breath. And breathe in, fill up with air. Big open mouth exhalation, let that go. And take another full breath in. Exhale, relax your shoulders. Gently tuck your chin. Just let your head fall. Allow the back of your neck to grow longer. Take a breath in. Very gently lift your chin back up to neutral. And if it feels okay, as you exhale, drop your right ear towards your right shoulder. Very, very gently. Just let gravity work. Take a breath in. Lift your head back up to center. Exhale, drop your left ear towards your left shoulder. Breathe in, and lift your head back up. And with your exhalation, very gently lift your chin. Send your nose slightly towards the ceiling. Be very gentle with the back of your neck. And take a breath in. Bring your chin back to center. And slowly start to flutter your eyes open. We'll explore some different postures that you can do. Does anybody have a question? Any questions about yoga breathing? So those are just some general exercises that you can do to bring yourself into the moment. So if you're ever in a situation, maybe a waiting room, maybe traffic, and you start to have that feeling where things are getting away from you, one of the easiest things to do, not close your eyes if you're driving, but one of the easiest ways to help rein things back in is to bring your awareness to your breath. You can control your breath. Sometimes that is the only thing that we can control. That closed mouth breathing, if you're ever in a situation where your heart is racing, you can slow down your own heart rate by slowing down your breathing. And generally that closed mouth breathing, breathing in and out your nose, slow, bringing your awareness to that. If you do that, and I've tested this at the doctor's office, your heart rate will slow down. I've done it when they've taken my heart rate. I'll do it, and then I'll be like, can you do it again? Breathe in and out your nose very, very slowly. So we'll explore. We'll go back to some breathing exercises, but I wanted to go through some yoga-based restorative things that can be done in a chair, or maybe even at work, or while you're sitting, or anything like that. So speaking to our hips, I think it's going to be kind of hard for everybody to get down on the floor here, but if you do a lot of sitting, a really good way to open up your hips, and I'll just show you this. I'll lay on the floor because I don't really care. I lay on the floor, I touch sweaty people. I teach hot yoga, so I touch sweaty people, and I'm on floors all the time. So if you have a bolster, one of the easiest ways to open up your hips is to come down onto the floor, but very slowly. So because we do a lot of sitting, and we can, if anybody else wants to try this, I can help you with this, but if you are at home and you've been sitting all day and you want to open up your hips, I think a lot of times we feel like more is better, right? We we all want to touch our toes, but a lot of things, when you stretch and crank on something, you're also stretching the nerve that's inside. So we really want to, yoga has changed a lot. We really want to be nice to our bodies, but something restorative to open up the front of your hip flexors if you're sitting all day is you can find a bolster and just get comfortable. Can everybody still hear me with this? So you can do things like, to make it a little bit more gentle, start by laying on a bolster, stay up on your elbows. So this is a version of something called Sphinx pose. So I'm very gently letting my hips open. So imagine I've been sitting for, I don't know, several hours already today. Front line of our body can be very tight, but it's not gonna open up in just a minute. You're undoing days, hours, years of those muscles being folded. So there's a pose called Sphinx pose. You can just rest, and then after a while, you can put your bolster under your chest. So this is a very small bolster, but just something as simple, or you can use it for a pillow. Just using gravity to let your body, to just let that open, release it. So I think we all know stretches where you're ready to put right in your super aggressive. So we want to let things that have been folded, we want to let them open and slowly restore it. So you're taking more like a power yoga class. It's going to be very different, or like an asana practice, a slow flow, vinyasa flow, ashtanga yoga. But for restorative yoga, the whole goal of restorative yoga is, again, to restore you back to maybe that feeling when you first wake up in the morning. Unless you're like me and sleep curled up in a ball, I wake up in the morning and I instantly have to stretch. But if you sleep on your back, you might wake up feeling more open. So when you think about the position that you're sitting in, to undo it very slowly. Does that make sense, right? So even just laying on the floor, and then another restorative posture, which is kind of hard, but we can try it here. It's actually called broken bridge, but I don't like that name, so I renamed it restorative bridge. So a broken bridge pose, you just lay on your back, and this will be the opposite. This is to release your lower back. So you lay on the ground, knees together, and then feet out wide. So to get your lower back to release, because lower backs can also be very tight, so you can take a bridge pose. Another favorite restorative pose that you can do anywhere is, you can use it any chair. I know you guys are like, why is this lady on the floor? I'm just doing demos, so, and then we can take turns and try anything. If you have a tight lower back, basically anything that takes the pressure off your back and allows your back to release to the earth with as little effort as possible is considered restorative. So in restorative yoga, it's really letting things go back to their natural state, meaning really no muscle engagement, to release your lower back down to the floor, to your mat. I don't know how clean this floor is, but I'll definitely be taking a shower later. How does that feel? It's good on the lower back, right? So that's an example of a restorative pose. But say you're sitting at work, starting to feel fidgety, right? So there are things that you can do in a chair, like put your feet up. So if you can ever use a footrest at work or anywhere, if you're in a chair, anything that changes whatever posture that you're in to feel more supportive. So like my son was in a wheelchair, and does everybody know Tilton space? I'm not really sure. So the Tilton space, one of the greatest inventions ever, where I'm sitting in this chair. If you know anybody, if you have kids or family members that do use a wheelchair and they have that Tilton space feature, what it does is it changes where all the weight is. So imagine that I'm just tilting, so I'm still sitting like this, but I'm fully reclined back. So when I would have my son do yoga, I would put him in that posture. Now, sitting in these kind of chairs, there's not that much that we can do as far as changing the angle, but things that you can do, if you have these small bolsters are really nice. Just sitting on like a little pillow can kind of change the angle. Putting a pillow behind your back of a cross-legged seat, you can do sort of a seated figure 4. And it'll just open up, flex your top foot, and you can take this knee. I'm not a fan of super aggressive pressing. So the knee that's open up, you can take cross your right ankle over your left knee, if that feels comfortable, and then take your right hand and place it on the inside of your right thigh, and very gently just give it a little push away. So you can open up your hip flexors just a little bit. You can't really do too much, right, if you're at work. Do we feel that? If you tried it? Yeah, it's just a very gentle pressure. It's tiny little things like that can maybe help a little bit more comfort. And even ankle rolls. Roll your ankle around, and then you go the other direction. And I'm going to take my shoe off. You can do this, but you don't have to. But I'm going to show you some foot exercises or some foot opening things that you can do if you're sitting. I'm just going to show you on my foot so you can see what I'm doing. So we all know point your foot, right? You point your foot, you squeeze your calf. And then this is flex. So you feel a little release in your shin. These are a little bit more active, but if you're stuck sitting, and then there's something in yoga that we call a floint, which is your Barbie foot. Point your foot and then you peel your toes back. It's a floint because it's between a flex and a point. So you can do ankle rolls, things like that to find comfort. I know a lot of us end up sitting for long periods of time. I know, so a lot of things that I used to do in my car, I have found out are so unsafe, like putting one foot on the dashboard or driving with like one foot. So I don't do any of that anymore. But I'm a very fidgety person. If you sit next to me, my husband and mom can probably attest to this. I can't ever sit still. So I have a very hard time sitting still. And I think there's a lot of pressure with like yoga or meditation or things like that we want to force it. So I'm going to tell you another little yoga story, and it's how our asana practice came to be. So yoga started as a seated meditation. And then I'm not sure how many years, a few hundred years later, it was a long time, longer than you would think. Somebody was like, it's a little bit boring, just sitting here breathing. It feels very forced. It's actually stressful because I feel pressure to sit and breathe and meditate and focus, and it's hard because the brain likes to wander. And then somebody was like, hey, why don't we move around? Why don't we move around and then link our breath to our movement? That's your asana practice or your pose. It just means to put something in a special way, right? All your poses where you link breath to movement. And the point of linking the breath to the movement, like in your classes, do they cue a lot of inhale and exhale, breathe in, breathe out? It's the breathing. And if you take a yoga class, at the end of your yoga class, there's something called shavasana, which is just a resting pose after class, right? So your entire yoga class, right? If you go take it somewhere else, that's not a little workshop, restorative thing, you'll do all these poses, and then they'll give you a couple. If you take my class, you're going to get 4 minutes. Sometimes it's only a minute, which is very sad to me. But if you have a full shavasana, that is actually a restorative pose. You lay supported by the earth, let your hands fall out, your feet fall out wide, and that's actually the hardest pose of a class. I don't know if you've ever had a teacher tell you that, but it's true because I watch my students, I watch them fidgeting around. So when I write a yoga class, if it's going to be a more physically challenging class, my entire goal is to get them so tired that when it's time for shavasana, they want that rest and they want to be still, because that's actually the point of yoga. You have like a peak pose in class, and I'll always have my peak pose will be shavasana, and that is restorative yoga. It's just putting you back. Let the sweat dry, restore, let your mind rest. You cannot force your mind to rest. The more you tell your mind to rest, I'm going to sit and meditate, sometimes can become hard, challenging, stressful. What am I doing wrong? Why can't I meditate? Everybody else can meditate. Everybody else can be calm and peaceful. Sometimes all you can do is just control your breath. And that's it. That's all you need to do. If you're feeling overwhelmed or things are getting to you, if you can find a quiet place, put your knees or feet up on a chair, and just bring your focus and your awareness to your breath. That's restorative yoga. And you don't have to call it yoga. You can just call it whatever, a timeout. But that bringing your attention back to your breath and connecting to your breath sort of slows the world down for a moment, at least for you. And that gives your mind a break, right? Our mind, does anybody kind of worry about things a lot and get stressed and feel like you're always thinking? I hope it's not just me. Yeah, right? We're always thinking and planning. So, I know my son had a life-limiting disease. He passed away on April 18th, 2020. And when people say, to enjoy the moment, the one thing that you can never get back is time, this moment. So if you're in a moment, you're eating or you're talking to someone and you're doing something else at the same time, or even not even being on your phone, if your mind is wandering, you're not fully present in that moment, right? You're thinking about the past. Oh, I should have said that. You know what? I was fighting with someone. I had this great comeback. I thought of it in the shower. Then, we're always thinking, right? We're always worrying and stressing and thinking. So what we're missing out on is the present moment. The easiest way to rein yourself back in is just those breathing exercises. And if you feel fidgety, you can just do things to shift around, and sometimes it helps to find that connection to your body. What part of me is feeling compressed or crunchy or tight? So if it's the inside of your hips, then you want to undo that. So maybe lay flat or lay supported if it's your lower back. Does anybody have any specific areas of your body that are more challenging, bother you? Shoulders? Well, so my husband won't listen to me, but this is how my husband sits at his computer. So this is called tech neck. It has an actual name. And we're all looking down at your phone. It's okay to have length in the back of your neck and tuck your chin, but if you sit like that for a really long time, it's actually really bad for your neck. So a bolster like this is great. Or if you take a towel, roll up a towel, lay on the ground and put the towel in the back of your neck. Just undo that. You can even use your hands. So here, let's try this with our hands. It's very hard for me to do with the mic. So, all right, I'm going to do this on my left hand because I'm left-handed. So take your right hand and take the bony part on the outside of your thumb and bring it to the side of your neck on the left. And everybody has a tight spot, but it's going to be somewhere different for everybody. So for me, I can press down, I can press in. And does anybody not have a knot or tightness anywhere? Okay. I've had one student tell me, nope, nothing's tight in here. I'm like, I feel like I should feel it because I don't even believe you. So this is a form of myofascial release, actually. So there's certain areas of our body that get knots. Trigger point massage, things like that. So you can take your hand. If you ever see somebody in a blue Jeep at a red light doing this, it's probably me. So I will use that bony part, and you can even kind of lean into it. Does this feel so good? It kind of hurts, but it kind of feels good. So if you get a stiff neck, bony part, and then, of course, you do the other side, roll your neck around, and really lean into it. So I am one for things like this. It's very personal choice, like how much pressure do you like? This, by the way, this is not restorative yoga. This is more like a myofascial release. But it all comes down to finding comfort in this body, right? The gift of embodiment, short, blink of an eye. Whether it's 10 years or 100 years, it's always going to seem too short. Sometimes all we can do is look for those moments of comfort. Eat something delicious, hug someone, watch animals play. Whatever it is that gives you just some peace and some comfort. And I think I could do a whole yoga class on that. always laying on a foam roller on my back. Let me just check the time really quick. Does anybody else have any like specific areas of your body that are tight or bother you? Hips. So hips are a big thing. I'm for hips and lower back. So a lot of times our lower back will feel tight. It doesn't mean your lower back is tight. This whole area is your iliopsoas. Your core is actually all of this, all of this, all of this. It's this whole section here. So you want to strengthen and open as much as you can all of those muscles equally, because a lot of times what we have are imbalances, right? Our hip flexors are tight, so this is all pulling, and all of these muscles are connected, so that'll translate into low back pain. And one of the most gentle ways to undo that is laying belly down, and then maybe coming up onto your arms. You can stamp your feet up to the ceiling to open the front side of your body. And then to unwind your back, lower back stretches, things like that. But on the restorative side, just have support under everything so that every part of you kind of feels like you're laying on a cloud. You can use blankets, you can use pillows, you can use anything. So for hips, if it's practical for you, like at home, I like active mobility when it is appropriate. So for restorative, the goal is disengage muscles. But on the other side of that, right, yin and yang, active muscle engagement helps with opening muscles. So there's very gentle ways that you can work on hips. So to work on hips, you can even come to, and you want to work them in all directions. So if your knees bother you, you can have this knee on a pillow and have one leg out. So we want to rotate our hips. Hip is a socket, so you want to rotate inward, which probably is more awkward, and then an external rotation. And then you can shift back and forth, rotate, and you can do these laying down. A little bit out. So you can also do these clamshells, right, where you close and then you open, and then to let gravity help, you can lift your top leg and externally rotate and then internally rotate. And then a lot of us have tightness through the IT band. You can straighten your leg and bring it down in front of you. So I know I can't go through every single thing, but those are common things that get tight on people. And then if your mobility is a different level of mobility, like for my son, I would put his body, I think probably if you're familiar with physical therapy, things like that, you have somebody putting your body through range of motion, putting you in different postures to help open it up. If you go based on what your mobility is, so that things can be accessible to everyone. And I tell this to my students who run marathons and have a very advanced, I hate the word advanced, yoga practice. Will be very hard on themselves. Like, I couldn't balance today. We're so hard on ourselves. And then I tell them, my son was in a wheelchair and he practiced yoga. They're like, how did he practice yoga? I'm like, he breathed in and out. He was breathing and he was mindful about it. So it's not just the act of breathing, it's the act of breathing and bringing your attention and your awareness to your breath. So did anybody, yeah. I do. I'm going to have to put the mic, let me see. So, okay, so your hands are closed. So a lot of what we think of as tight wrists is actually tight forearms, because what you have to do is kind of walk it back. My wrist hurts, so what could possibly be pulling on that part? You might have to go all the way up here. So one thing that I love is if you have a table or if you sit on the floor, I like to do this one hand at a time. We kind of always want to stretch. We have a tendency, right? We always want to daily life, right? Taking it the other. So it has a restorative element to it in that it's putting it back neutral. So when you think of neutral alignment, when a muscle's contracted, if that's contracted, you want to let it open. So if this feels really too intense, it's your body, it's your arm. Do it less. Like, you control how much pressure you're going to put on that. The one I'll show you though that I like, because we forget about our thumbs too. Always grabbing everything, right? So it's okay. You'll have to do it this way. Get the thumb. Don't forget about the thumb. Yeah, and be gentle. I always tell my students, be nice to your body, right? We want to force it. So the way that we practice yoga is thousands of years old, and I love yoga. Okay, I practice, I teach, but it's not magic. Okay, it's not a miracle thing that can just fix everything. And there is yoga that's not great for every single person's body. If you take an Ashtanga or like a power yoga class, you might be familiar with that kind of yoga, right? That's what we think. It's like a super aggressive, very athletic, tons of twisting, things like that. That was actually developed for like prepubescent male athletes, developed by people that didn't have open hips and didn't have kids. So what we've learned in thousands of years is that yoga poses will look different in everybody. They'll look and they'll feel different in everybody. So it's sort of a matter of adjusting it to your body, right? If you want to do something restorative, I might need a huge bolster. I want to use 3 of these, one behind my neck, one in my lower back, one behind my knees to take that pressure off. Pillows, blankets, all of those things. And like I said, it's hard to do here because we would have really had to give everybody a list of what to bring or supply it and have a lot more space. And these are just kind of things that you can, maybe remember 10% of and take it back out with you. But we'll work on a little more breathing, but hips, all directions. And shoulders are a big deal too. Shoulders are an unstable joint. So the reason you can move them in every direction, it's just soft tissue. So anything you're doing with your shoulders, like clasping, I can show you guys a nice shoulder. Does anybody have tight shoulders? So I'm going to show you a nice shoulder mobility drill that you can do. We can even do it seated. If you come a little bit forward, I'm going to have to put the mic down. It's called CTY. It's laying on the ground. So to find your neutral shoulder line, just kind of get a little bit and then just take a reach from Oh, piriformis. Ugh, that is like so your piriformis, your SI joint, everything, a lot of things in here are very, very tight. So I'm going to show you, do you ever do pigeon pose in yoga? I should have brought my yoga blocks. I'm like, should I bring my yoga blocks? And then I was like, no, I have so much stuff. I didn't bring yoga blocks. I'm going to use this bolster to demo how you can do it and be gentle on your knees. So there's a couple different ways to stretch. Touching the toes. So a lot of times what I hear is, oh, I can't do yoga, I can't even touch my toes. Just show of hands if you think touching your toes is somehow important in life. It's not. So if you ever thought that, it's totally not important. And it's also not an indication of athletic ability, functional ability, health, how flexible you are. So flexible is kind of like very 10 years ago, opening, functional mobility, things like that are kind of more what we're going for. So instead of even thinking about touching your toes, I should have brought a hair thing. I'm going to show you a very gentle pores. You don't pad on it, you pad around it. And finding length and opening is a very similar thing. You want to focus on everything around it. So not really the wrist, but maybe what could be pulling on that. And then maybe think of all the poses, not poses, but postures, whatever positions that your body is in all day. And if there's things that you're in all day, find the opposite of that, or the neutral version. So it doesn't always have to be a big quad stretch, right? It can just be laying flat. And then your gravity and the weight of your own body is opening all this up. Be nice, gradual, take it slow. Check the time, but does anybody, yes, 5 more minutes? Okay, we're gonna close with some breathing, but does anybody else have any like specific areas or questions before we close? No? Okay, so get comfortable, or as comfortable as you can get. If you need to sit for a moment or stand, shake it off. Find a place where you can get comfortable. Is this on? It is? Okay. Close your eyes. We're going to close with a version of Shavasana and find a place where you feel supported. You can have your hands in your lap. Generally, when we think of energy, if you place your palms down, that's a more grounding feeling. If you flip your palms up, that will let you receive energy. So what would feel better in your body at this moment? Close your eyes. Slowly bring your awareness and your attention back into your own space on your chair. Take a full breath in. Fill up your lungs with air. Let your ribs start to separate. Breathe space all the way to the top of your lungs, the sides, the bottom. And exhale, let that go. Big open mouth exhalation. Take another full breath in. Fill up your lungs with air. And pause at the top. Hold just for a moment. And now exhale for 4, 3, 2, and 1. Hold empty just for a moment. See if you can force out an extra breath of air. Now take a full breath in. Fill up your lungs for 4, 3, 2, and 1. Hold full. Exhale for 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold empty. And breathe in for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale for 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Listen for change. Hold empty for 4, 3, 2, and 1. Take a full breath in. No counting, just breathe in, fill up your lungs as full as you possibly can. When they feel full, take an extra sip of air in at the top. See if you can expand. There's always some room for growth, always some room for improvement. Then exhale that out, empty your lungs. When your lungs feel empty, see if you can force out an extra breath of air. Use your core muscles, snap your navel towards your spine. See if that helps you empty your lungs. Now take another full breath in, fill up with air. Big open mouth exhalation, sigh that out. Empty your lungs. Take a big breath in, fill up. Seal your lips. Exhale slow and controlled through your nose for 4, 3, 2, 1. Take another full breath in. Big open mouth exhalation. Keep your eyes closed. closed. And I welcome you to join me in one more round of breath. And if you choose, bring your palms together. Pull your thumbs in to meet your heart. So press your palms together, pull your thumbs in towards your heart. Gently let your chin drop so the back of your neck grows a little bit longer. And take a full breath in, breathe in, fill up with air. A big open mouth exhalation, let that go. Good, one more just like that, full breath in. Big exhalation, let that go. It was my honor and my pleasure to guide you all through this workshop today. And I thank you all for trusting me to be your guide and for sharing your light and your energy with me and with each other. And every single person in here has a beautiful light inside of them. When people gather in groups, we all shine brighter.